Today we're taking a look at a tilt shift adapter that allows you to turn adapted Nikon F lenses into tilt shift lenses for your Sony E-mount camera. Hey everyone, Sean here with Fotodiox.com, and I'm holding a Nikon F-mount to Sony E tilt ROKR adapter. Tilt ROKR refers to the tilt shift technology built into this adapter. Not only does it adapt a Nikon F-mount SLR lens to a mirrorless Sony E-mount camera, it also has tilt and shift mechanisms built into it. That means with an adapted Nikon F lens, you can tilt the lens and you can also shift it. Now we're going to get into depth on how to use this adapter for various tilt shift effects, but first let's take a look at how to use it. And first off, I'm going to show you how to mount your Nikon F lens on the adapter. It's pretty simple. You're just going to line up the mounting dot on your lens with the mounting dot on the adapter, press the lens into the adapter and rotate it to lock it into place. There we go. Now we've got the Nikon F lens on the adapter. And as you'll see on this adapter, there's this blue ring with these white dots here. And this is an aperture control ring. And this is actually essential when you're adapting a Nikon F-mount lens. This lens I'm using right here has manual aperture control on it. So I can go from f1.8 all the way to f22, no problem. But if I was using this adapter with a more modern Nikon F-mount lens, some of those lenses do not have manual aperture control rings. You control the aperture directly through the Nikon F camera. And that's why we put this little blue ring in here. This manually controls the aperture of a Nikon F lens. I can show you right here as I turn the ring. I'm going from the narrowest aperture to the widest aperture. And as you can see, it's a very smooth adjustment. And this is really nice if you want smooth iris control, especially if you're shooting video. When you're adjusting the aperture manually with the manual control on the lens, it's stopped, so it clicks as you're opening it. But with the blue ring, with the blue aperture control ring, it's much smoother. It's a much smoother adjustment. Now let's mount the lens and adapter on our Sony E-mount camera. Again, super simple. Red mounting dot lined up with white mounting dot on, this is my Sony A7S II. Press it in, lock it. There we go. Now we've got this beautiful little Nikon pancake lens adapted to my Sony E-mount mirrorless full frame camera. And if I leave this adapter exactly how it is, this will work just like any other adapter. The lens will perform normally. It'll focus to infinity. I can adjust the aperture and I can just use it like a normal manual lens. But if I want to add tilt shift to the lens, I can do that with the mechanisms built into the adapter. First off, let's take a look at shifting the lens. To shift the lens, it's actually pretty simple. You're just going to press this silver button here, push it down, and then you can shift to the left like that. That's 10 millimeters of shift. Can shift to the right. That's another 10 millimeters for a total of 20 millimeters of shift. And not only can you shift left and right, you can also shift up and down. And the way you do that is you just press this little gold button here. You can rotate the lens sideways, and then you can shift up and down. And you don't just have to do it up and down. You can rotate it like this, and then you can shift diagonally. So pretty much however you want to shift, you can do so with the mechanism in the adapter. And shifting a lens can be really useful, especially for perspective distortion correction. Let's say you're photographing a tall building, and if you're pointing the lens up at the building, those leading lines, they are not going to be straight. They're actually going to be going towards each other from your perspective, and those lines won't be super pleasing, especially if you're using a wider lens. This is a 50 mil lens, so the lines won't be as distorted. But if you're using a wider lens, you will have more distorted leading lines. And the way you deal with that is you actually rotate to the side like this, and you're just going to shift your lens up a little bit. And by shifting up, you're taking the lines of the building and you're actually straightening them out. You're making the lines straighter for a more pleasing photograph. Okay, now we're going to get to the thing you're probably all the most interested in, which is tilt. This lens adapter is not only a shift adapter, it's also a tilt adapter. And the way we tilt the lens is we actually loosen this gold knob on the side, and then we can tilt the lens down up to 10 degrees of tilt, and you can actually see the markings right there. We're at 10 right now. Then, just like the shift, we can rotate the tilt wherever we want by pressing the gold button on the side and rotating it 360 degrees. And tilt is a very useful tool for both photography and video. One of the things you can do with tilt is if you're shooting a still life or product photography, if you're shooting with a wide open aperture, especially like this lens is f1.8. Let's say you're shooting at f1.8, f2.8, you have very shallow focus. The focus plane is very shallow. And if you have two subjects in different focal planes and you want them both focused on at the same time, you can always do focus stacking, or you can actually rotate the lens to the side and you can do a very slight tilt. And by tilting the lens very slightly, you're taking your focal plane and you're tilting it. So suddenly you're able to adjust your focal plane and focus on things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to focus on both of at the same time. There's also a fun and artistic thing you can do with tilt photography. You can tilt drastically down, all the way up to 10 degrees of tilt, and you can shoot wide open. And by doing this, you're taking your shallow focus, you're tilting it, and you're creating a narrow beam of focus, a narrow strip of focus in your photo, and everything on the right or left or up or down is going out of focus. We like to call this selective focus, and this can be a really fun tool, especially if you're going for a more dreamlike look. If you don't care if the image looks very realistic, if you don't mind having distortion on the left and right, a little bit of vignetting, you can use this selective focus tilt effect to create beautiful selective focus photos and videos. Once again, this is a very artistic kind of art photography experimental look. It's not for everyone. A lot of people are going to be more interested in using the tilt effect in our Tilt ROKR adapters for much more subtle focal adjustments, and that's fine. But I also know that a lot of our customers buy our Tilt ROKR adapters specifically to get this very drastic selective focus effect. And with photography, as with all art, there aren't really any rules. You use the tools that you need for the images and videos you want to create. Now, one quick note before we go. As you may have noticed in this video, I have a full frame Nikon F lens mounted to a full frame Sony E-mount camera. And so when I am tilting and when I'm shifting, you might wonder, is the image circle of this lens able to give me enough coverage? The image circle of this lens is made for a full frame camera. So when I drastically tilt it or shift it, there will be a little bit of vignetting. And yes, that's true. When I tilt all the way, I'm going to have dark edges. When I shift all the way, especially if I have the aperture stopped down, I will have vignetting on the edges of the frame. Now, there are a couple ways to deal with this. You can shoot full frame and crop in post. You can set your camera to APS-C crop mode, and this especially works if you are using a Sony E-mount camera that already has an APS-C sensor. You don't have to worry about vignetting at that point because you're cropping in. You won't see the edges of the image circle of the lens. We found that 50mm lenses and longer vignette less than wider lenses. So if you put like a 28mm on here, you will get more heavy vignetting when you tilt and shift. Now, if you want to use an adapter like this, but you don't want any vignetting at all, I would definitely recommend our medium format to Sony E-mount Tilt ROKR adapters. These are adapters that use larger medium format lenses that have a much larger image circle and adapt them to a full frame Sony E-mount camera. And by doing that, you can shift all the way, you can tilt all the way, and you won't get any vignetting because, like I said, those lenses have a much larger image circle. Now, we don't just make this Nikon F to Sony E-mount Tilt ROKR adapter. We have a whole line of Tilt ROKR adapters for Sony E-mount cameras that use various lenses. And we also have a whole line of Tilt ROKR adapters for various cameras, different types of camera mounts, different types of lens mounts. So if you'd like to learn more about this adapter or all of the Tilt ROKR adapters we have to offer, click the links in the video description. Also, comment below if you have any questions or comments. Do you have any questions about this setup? Do you have a comment about something I said? Definitely comment below. I'd love to help you out. Also, click right here to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more videos just like this one. I'm Sean with Fotodiox.com, and thanks for watching.